Joining me now is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Stanford University epidemiology professor, and Dr. Martin Kulldorff, Harvard Medical School epidemiology professor and biostatistician. Dr. Bhattacharya, why did it take so long for scientists to come along to the conclusion that acquired immunity or natural immunity was going to be upon us sooner than all of their predictions, especially with Fauci saying we needed 80 to 90% herd immunity?
I think people overestimated the ability of these lockdowns to do any good whatsoever. They thought about these lockdowns as keeping people apart, like in cages from another. In fact, that's not the actual lived experience of lockdowns. And as we can see, even though we've adopted these lockdowns, the cases have spread pretty widely. I think that they overestimated these lockdowns, and they underestimated, very strangely, the fact that once you're infected, you actually do produce immunity. I mean, I think it was just a mistake on the part of the scientific community and Dr. Fauci in thinking about these lockdowns, and I think it's produced devastating effects.
If we look at history of epidemics and pandemics, they end with herd immunity. And that is the same as now this pandemic is ending with herd immunity as a combination of immunity from natural infection and from vaccines. So that's what we knew were going to happen, and that's what's happening.
And that means when the concern, Dr. Bhattacharya, about viral variants, which is what is being brought up, and no good news in COVID land. There's never any good news. There's always another variant around the corner. But those variants aren't shown, at least not now, to be more lethal, are they? So why is that being trotted out as anything but getting us closer to herd immunity?
I mean, I think there's some element of we're so used to being scared and in panic that we kind of want it again and again. You were absolutely right. There's no evidence that these variants are more lethal. Most of the evidence suggests that if you had COVID before, you're still protected against the variants, and the vaccines are also protective to a large extent against the variants that we've seen thus far. And to the extent that we I mean, it's always possible that there's some variant, but it seems unlikely given what we've seen thus far. I think the penchant of the public health community to promote panic has been one of the biggest mistakes in this epidemic. We should be reassuring the public when we can, and we should have been through the whole epidemic. I think a lot of the harms have come from the panic induced by the public health community and Dr. Fauci in particular.
The issue of the children and schools, how is history going to look back on that?
We've robbed a generation of children of their birthright to have a good education for no good public health purpose. We don't have to look to Europe. I mean, of course, you are absolutely right. We knew in April from just looking at Sweden and other countries in Europe keeping their schools open safely. We can also look to the United States. We look in Florida, where schools have been open to in-person instruction 5 days a week without all of the rigmarole. I completely agree with Dr. Kulldorff. We should open up our schools immediately, 5 days a week, and go back to normal. We are damaging a generation of children in ways that we cannot recover from, and there's no good moral reason to do it, no good public health reason to do it.
To that point, Dr. Kulldorff, this is how the Biden administration tried to address the obvious failure of lockdowns in the state of California.
California basically in lockdown, and their numbers aren't that different from Florida.
Look, there's so much of this virus that we think we understand, that we think we can predict, that's just a little bit beyond our explanation.
Dr. Kulldorff, what? See, I'm not a doctor. You guys are the experts. But is that really beyond explanation? Aren't we seeing a controlled experiment taking place before our eyes with different state approaches? What's working, what's not?
Well, what's happening is completely predictable. Lockdowns does not work, and we have proof now that they do not work. They do not protect the old people. Unfortunately, there were a lot of people who were thinking that by doing lockdown, we would sort of indirectly protect the old people by suppressing the virus in the population. But of course, that didn't work, and we knew it wasn't going to work. But the sad thing is that because people were thinking that the lockdowns would work and protect the older, high-risk people, we didn't take the measures, the focus measures of protecting them through standard public health measures that could have been implemented and that should have been implemented already in March of 2020. And because we didn't take those focused protection measures of older, high-risk people, we have seen very high death counts because of that.
Yeah, we punished the young and we didn't protect the elderly and the compromised.
Correct.